Now, let's move on to Chapter 9 or Chapter 8, depending on your book or edition, Market Segmentation, Targeting, and Positioning. Market segmentation plays a key role in all organizations. It's highly unfeasible to try to serve everyone that breathes, nor can your organization be everything to everyone. Instead, we focus on particular customers. But how to do this? In this chapter, we present segmentation as such a process that helps us do this. And in that regard, it helps us target and it helps us position ourselves. Here are your learning objectives for this chapter, and it's the usual. Not only do you want to know the terms, but why we do it. So, broadly speaking, these boil down to understand what is market segmentation positioning, why we do each, and acquire a few tactics for how you could seek to segment a market for a product or brand, or position your product or brand as well. So take a moment to consider the following statement to get us thinking about how we select our customers and what we want to be for them. Let's say our target market is 21-year-old women attending school. What type of person do you envision? What does this say about their needs? So go ahead and think about it. So hopefully you thought, okay, it's a good start. We have a better sense of who the student is, but then we likely realize we lack context still to be able to properly evaluate whether it's a good target market statement. First, it's hard to know if this works without a sense of our product. What is the primary value we deliver? So target market selection and your organization's capabilities go hand in hand. What can we do best? Segmenting based on demographics tends to be very rough. So think about it. First, you can envision how when we look at target market is 21-year-old women attending school, we didn't actually specify what type of school, whether a military academy, four-year college, community college, culinary institute, or other kinds of programs. Many of you have all sorts of schooling to be proud of. And this is a good start, but it doesn't say what type of schooling. It has a bit of a sense of that they're interested in some kind of education and probably have some kind of goals in mind, but it doesn't say what. It stops there. And now let's go further. Second, let's say we can agree it's a type of school, like a four-year type college like the University of Laverne. As you can imagine, if you took any one 21-year-old woman, their needs would be similar in a way, but yet it doesn't address what she is interested in. What are her goals? Where is she living? And so on. A 21-year-old student who is a single mother and has a son is now going to a local college after achieving her GED is a bit different in outlook and needs than a 21-year-old student who is a woman and studying at a university cross-country from where she grew up and seeking to get an internship at the capital. Ultimately, you can see how these and other target markets can, first, they can clue us in on what might matter. So for example, if you are selling apparel, you're likely to know certain cuts and sizes are more likely to sell if you know it's a 21-year-old woman. We can use characteristics that are easier to see that can stand in for characteristics we're more interested in. So these characteristics might be a lot more visible to us to signal the characteristics we're actually interested in. So again, knowing women may be more interested in certain qualities in their products or having certain shopping styles, and it's easier to focus on this form of appeal. But this can give us a false sense of what we know. It can give us false info if we're not careful. It tells us what might matter, not necessarily what does or doesn't at the time. So 21-year-old women have a lot of different needs and experiences. It might not be detailed enough. But you don't want to become too detailed as well. You may lose sight what your true value is. So it may primarily be young adult women, but we may have a large segment of family members of young adult women, say for maybe university branded apparel. So just something to think about. So it comes to the big question. What is segmentation and why bother? Why do we bother with this? So before we go forward, let's review markets, those things we segment. Markets are a group of potential customers that consists of people with both the desire and the ability to engage in exchange with a firm over a specific offering. So, groups of potential customers with similar needs who are willing to exchange something of value with sellers offering ways to satisfy their needs. As a quick reminder, markets are made up of people, not bagels, not bread. It's a verbal shortcut when we say something like the bagel market. Really, we mean the market that likes to buy bagels. The bagel is not actually buying anything. So it's pretty difficult to make a plan for each and every individual customer you might have. So instead, we tend to cluster sets of customers with very related needs, what we call markets. So there will be customers who all like different particular things for breakfast, but we can probably think about them as those who like hot breakfast, those who like carb-heavy breakfast, those who like to go or rather have on-the-go breakfast. However, what we find is that even a single market can have a great deal of diversity. So consider how many different needs and preferences there are even for people who all like bike riding or who all like pizza. There's plenty of space for different firms that make frozen pizza, gourmet pizza, really cheap pizza, giant pizza boxes, pizza that can be taken home, pizza served in a friendly, neighborly environment, and so on. So serving the entire market is not nearly specific enough. So in sum, markets are a group of potential customers with related needs and willingness and ability to buy. However, we find a major problem is that there's still plenty of diversity within a single market. Therefore, we need to do something else to better guide our managerial decisions. This is where market segmentation comes to our rescue. Why do we segment? And what is it? So, what we do is market segmentation is the process of aggregating, that is grouping, prospective customers into groups that have very similar needs and responses to a marketing mix. Why do we segment? It ultimately helps us deliver better value to our customers by focusing our organizational activities. So these give us examples of why we might do this. So you can imagine how gyms, trainers, or organizations that specialize in fitness services don't often aim to serve everyone. They know to focus on people with particular needs and potentially often in particular geographic area depending on type of service. Some are going to be very specific, like the Adaptive Training Foundation, which specializes in adaptive performance training for disabled veterans. Silver Sneakers is a fitness program for older adults. 24-hour fitness, it's right in the name. A one-stop gym for someone who may need to work out at odd hours. You can envision how knowing the type of segments you want to serve will determine what types of services and equipment you'll offer, the types of hours you provide, where you'll find customers, whether you go to them or they go to your site, and so on. And likewise, if your service or good is and has very particular value, that will inform who you should go to, who should you actually market to, so that you can save resources and best get the proverbial best bang for your buck for what you want to do, and presumably whatever, make profit, grow an idea, help others, whatever your value is, segmentation and targeting can help you better allot those resources and fulfill those organizational goals. So how does segmentation help us deliver better value to those customers? So first, markets tend to have members with a variety of product needs and preferences. So this is that pizza example or the gym example. Segmentation effectively helps us group these customers so that we can better tailor marketing mixes for each group based on important characteristics. Having one mix for everyone means a lot of people have a mix that poorly meets their needs. This means they're more likely to pass you up for someone else. And so this is again effectively our fitness services example from the last page. You don't have to serve everyone looking for a gym. Instead, you can focus on the particular way you're best able to serve a particular segment. Next, marketers can use segmentation to better define customer needs. Having these focused groups helps us better decide on effectively what our mix should be based on those needs. It's often too easy to get caught up in our product, what it can do for many different customers. By segmenting, we focus on the particular need set for customers and how we might need to change things to keep up with this group. A firm may even choose to specialize on a particular set of customers and needs. In this regard, we effectively can better differentiate, where we work on achieving superior performance in a particular customer benefit. Differentiation is super useful because it makes it easier to attract and keep customers. Just a warning, your book tends to use the term product differentiation. The product is usually a part of the core value or benefit, but I don't like using it because I think the term has a habit of getting people stuck on the product itself, especially the material parts. So the key here is that you make your mix, your entire offering superior in some way to competitors in ways that customers can know and treasure. So in this example here, you can see how a fabrics and crafts store realized they may want to stock costume patterns and fabrics all the time because cosplayers have more occasions that they may choose and rather when they may choose to craft and wear costumes versus traditional home Halloween costume makers. So rather than just ramping up right before the months before Halloween, they may anticipate more types of costume type sales throughout the year. Here's another way segmentation can help. Big emphasis is every organization has limited resources. Usually it's time and money, but you can imagine that you only have so much and you want to make sure you get and invest in the best decisions you can. So we need to make decisions on what to spend money on. Segmentation better lets us understand the needs and quirks of a particular group. This means we can get a better return on our investment because our mix is more likely to be effective. Remember, our job isn't to serve everyone. That's really hard to do. There's too many different needs and preferences out there. Instead, we aim to serve a particular group very well. This will earn us more overall revenue because people are willing to pay more money for something that fits their needs very well than something that barely helps. So in sum, segmentation is a process of grouping our customers to help focus our business activities. We start with a broad market, but then narrow down to a ruthlessly specific target market so that we can better tailor the marketing mix and therefore deliver better value. So, what should segments be? Ruthlessly specific. The more specific they are, the more useful they can be. So vague segments or segments that you can't take action on are not very useful. So a marketer should not aim to serve everyone or even everyone who likes donuts. We have Mad Eye Moody here. to remind you to be constantly vigilant because segments are just a tool for your decisions. Customers and conditions that affect how you serve them change quickly. You need to be careful and have a careful eye on your segments to make sure they continue to be useful in letting you deliver better value. So what makes a good segment? Here are ways you can tell if you have a good segment. And when I mean good, I mean useful. They all usually boil down to, can this segment lead to marketing action? So first, the segment should be homogeneous. This means, per our definition, segments, or rather members within the segment, should have sufficient similarities within the segment that make it useful to cluster this group together. Second, the segment should be substantial. This means it has to be big enough that the cost to make a separate mix for them will actually pay off, be worth it. This does not mean you have to have a huge total number. It just means you have a sufficient number to maintain your business. For example, luxury purses or personal jets are sold to very few total customers, but the margins on them are plenty sufficient to keep their companies in business. Next, useful segments are identifiable and measurable. This means that you actually have to be able to label this group and measure them. For example, you may have an idea there is a need for a certain service, like offering additional services for men at a spa. However, if you cannot actually figure out if a particular area has enough customers that are willing, indifferent, or unwilling to buy something or visit your service, that means you actually can't figure out the profit potential. It may be a good idea, but not in that particular area. You don't know, and so you need segments that are identifiable and measurable. Next, useful segments are also accessible. If you cannot reach this customer base through a marketing mix, there's no real reason to actually make a separate mix. For example, you learn that customers who have a certain toe length or a psychological trait like need for cognition tend to be very good buyers. However, for many products, it might be very difficult to design a marketing mix for this target market and communicate to this market. You can imagine how the internet has made this easier to an extent. Consider how the internet has made a dating service for farmers much more doable, whereas it would have previously been more difficult to effectively reach these customers. Finally, useful segments should be responsive. If the two separate segments really have no difference in how they respond to a marketing mix, then there's no reason to treat them separately. For example, we do not have separate Cheerios boxes for men and women. We make different flavors, but we don't have separate, like if it's the same Cheerios box, we don't have it separate for men and women. They pretty much have sufficiently similar needs that you can offer just the classic yellow box. But here's another example. A segment of 21-year-old men who like skateboards is too limited. Why 21? Will 20 and 22-year-olds be similar enough? So just something to think about. That's how we clustered. They should be sufficiently responsive. So in general, you are going for segments that are sufficiently the same within, so homogeneous within, large enough, findable, reachable, and helpful at focusing your marketing activities. If they cannot do that, they're not a good candidate for getting their own marketing mix. So keep tinkering with those segments. Now something you're probably thinking is, whoa, hey, wait. So I always stress using customer needs and benefits to segment, but then you go, hey, many firms organize their websites according to products. What gives? Here's my answer. Segmentation is useful for the firm to plan their activities. However, it may not be very useful to customers. You adjust the messages according to what customers need. So for example, Apple or HP will organize by products because they know that's something easy for customers to go, what do I need when they are navigating your website? However, this doesn't mean you should use such broad categories. So you can envision that they even likely divide products as strategic business units. However, each product or business unit likely has different segments it serves. So Apple especially provides value by having the products work together in a seamless way. So they may wish to think in terms of types of customers and lifestyles versus by product. After all, you can use the same product for multiple strategies, that is, target markets. The same goes for B2B. You have a customer set like medium agricultural, theme parks, large manufacturing, where you think in terms of their needs, not the products they tend to buy, so that you can expand the depth and the variety of products you offer them. It's much easier to expand a solution with an existing customer, say a customer potentially many products, than say thinking in terms of product only. So in sum, you will see firms organize their websites by products, but this may be for the ease of their customers. The products should be used as symbolic for a set of core needs. So you need to make sure that you don't get too involved in the product. Otherwise, you may leave yourself open to not seeing when needs change. So look to those value and benefits, not just the product. So how far do we go in terms of segmenting? So major questions you might have is, when do we stop? When do we know we have the right segments? When do we stop grouping? How do we trade off between having many segments versus having few segments? So a major question you might have, now let's answer that. So yes, how far do we go? We are going to have to make trade-offs during the segmentation process. So first, we usually start with figuring out what is our starting market. Once you have your market, which is an act of segmentation in itself, you have to ask how much do you want to group, that is, split the market. This will largely depend on type of needs that you want to target and your ability. When Ford Motors started, they could literally serve the whole market of people who want a motorized vehicle. They were the only game in town. Once competitors arrive and customers start demanding different things, then it makes sense to start grouping. Second, now we figure out who you actually want to serve. How many segments out of those segments you made should I serve? In the case of Ford, today they offer a wide variety of vehicles for many different customer types and purposes in the US and worldwide. However, for Tesla, they find they would love to eventually serve the masses, but at this point in time, they must be content with one mix that really only caters to a few segments within the larger electric car market. Finally, the firm asks, how many marketing mix should I make? One per segment? One for all segments? One mix serves segments A and B, and another serves segment C? This is the major question we often have to ask ourselves. Let's look at a few examples. Let's take a look at the different ways a firm can approach the question of how many segments to serve and how many marketing mixes to make. Big idea is there's no one right answer. It will always depend on the firm and the market opportunity. So the key to these examples is to give you a better sense on how you may approach the segmentation decision and linking it to your marketing mix decisions. The three terms are not in your book, so I don't expect you to need them for any quizzes or tests. However, they are useful terms to know as part of the marketing field, and I believe they will help you better approach your own decisions. So at one extreme, we have the undifferentiated targeting strategy, a single marketing mix for all segments, so you're a maximum combiner mass marketer. And most firms have increasingly moved away from this approach of one product for everyone, the whole market as one segment. This is the strategy followed by Henry Ford with his Model T. He had one marketing mix for any segments that are willing to look in. Many commodities like bulk goods have done this, but as you've likely seen, water, flour, and others are now increasingly branded, differentiated. So pros to this is that you get a lot of savings on production and marketing costs because you only have one marketing mix. But we don't usually like this because it's unimaginative, and you only have very untailored offerings. This makes companies more susceptible to competition. And customers start looking at each of you on price alone, or the other company swoops in with greater value because it's more targeted to a particular set's needs, and so they can peel that customer away from you. A very common strategy we see instead is what's called a multi-segment targeting strategy, where you have multiple targets. And often you have multiple mixes to go with those multiple targets. Here you wish to seek more than one segment, but you use multiple marketing mixes for many of those segments. Many firms, like Procter & Gamble, McDonald's, and others, use this. This can be very profitable because while you do incur more costs, by going after more segments with tailored offerings, your overall profit is higher. And you still get those economies of scale. The major cons, though, is, well, it costs more. You have more marketing mix now to also manage, and they could undermine each other, they can fragment what people know, they can start contradicting each other. So for example, Axe body spray, known for deodorant advertising, how it gets its users buxom ladies, and Dove, known for promoting body positivity, both owned by P&G. But you can tell that they, for a reason, try to keep them a little separate, to reduce confusion at least. And key again is also cannibalization, where products in the firm's line may cut into each other's sales. So this may especially be an issue if there's too much similarity amongst them and the market. So big idea is it may not make sense to have multiple mixes to a point. Finally, on the other big end, you can go really concentrated, where you focus on specifically one segment. It's often called niche marketing and can especially be useful for firms with limited resources because it can help the firm do very well with their specific segment. You can imagine that many small businesses may excel at this. Think how your local mechanic usually advertises in a very specific area. It may specialize in specific vehicle types, say Cadillacs, German vehicles, trucks, etc. Another example here is the NFL Sunday Ticket, which caters toward a specific segment of American football fans. Those who are a fan of a certain team, are living somewhere they cannot reliably get the right games on their TV, and of course are willing to pay for this. There are cons though. Effectively, you're putting all your eggs in one basket where you're more susceptible to changes and competition. So for example, Head & Shoulders took over much of the dandruff shampoo market. Another con is that a firm can become so associated with a certain image that it can be really hard to break out. For example, OshKosh B'gosh is so known for children's clothes that it may be difficult if they wish to expand to other age groups for apparel. However, as you can imagine, they may wish to go beyond apparel and seek market opportunities with considering needs. And that doesn't always mean you're stuck though. John Deere does not produce heavy agricultural use equipment alone. They do all sorts of equipment now and services. They've been able to successfully transition into serving sourcing and information services for agricultural businesses, and now they grow their machinery to golf courses. So in sum, it's just a matter that the marketer must decide what number of segments and what number of marketing mixes to do. You can go all in one or the other, or more commonly, you often have a mix of markets and marketing mixes. So a major trade-off the book focuses on when discussing the trade-offs made when segmenting is capitalizing on organizational synergy versus capitalization. Their major point is that after a certain point is that it stops making sense trying to serve all needs or to serve too many segments. So on the one hand, we have synergies. They're all about addressing that there are plenty of needs to serve for a particular market, and that synergies are created when your firm serves many customer needs in the form of new products, new features, and stronger distribution. All takes us time and money. But the more you do, often the more you're able to cater to those customers. So effectively, what I'm saying is that yes, it takes time and money, but often you want to expand the segments you serve, because by serving them, by having that experience, you're better able to cater to an increasing set of customer needs because you're getting better at it. This is effectively how you diversify. But synergy isn't all that's created when serving more and more needs of people. We have issues with cannibalization, where products in the firm's line may cut into each other's sales. And there's always some of this to an extent whenever you make an addition, but the idea is that you offer so many that you negate the costs. Effectively, you get less value because the costs are so high. By offering that extra mix, you're not recouping your costs. So therefore, you still gain more overall revenue because the product passed on was something they were not going to pay as much for anyway, but sometimes you get to the point where you're just spending so much to offer that variety that it's not working anymore. Usually it's a matter that they are not sufficiently different from each other, where the offerings are just too similar. So in this case, you see flavors, but you can get to the point where the flavors stop making sense. So mountain strawberry versus regular strawberry might get confusing. So cannibalization becomes a problem when you are no longer delivering sufficient value compared with the costs incurred. And you can see with this picture, customers do often like having different options or different flavors. We already have the machines and can use the same bottles. In fact, customers may like having the same bottles because it's easier to recognize. But then if we keep making more flavors or other varieties, we get to a point where we're expending more costs serving more needs than we are earning back in revenue. So in sum, major issue when selecting the number of segments to serve and the number of marketing mixes is that there are limits to how well you can serve. While serving more does produce synergy, you get better at serving and delivering better value. After a certain point, the cost incurred catches up with you, as does the fact customers stop seeing differences within the multitude of offerings you deliver. So remember, segmentation, targeting, and positioning boils down to strategizing how you are fitting yourself in with the market. You're not just any product provider. You're not just to any customer or market. Where do you want to stand on and be known for? What can you deliver? So effectively, you want a more tailored marketing mix so that you deliver more superior customer value. This will give you an advantage. This will give your organization a stronger likelihood of maintaining that sustainable competitive advantage. So again, think in terms of those gyms, hardware stores, or furniture stores for the way they specialize in serving different customers. It's not just the particular goods or services, but the entire package that is offered, and in such a way that it better promotes a sustainable competitive advantage. So with that ends our section on what segmentation is and why do we bother. So next section we'll go over the specific steps of how we make how we segment and what we're going for. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me at llouis@laverne.edu. So thanks for listening, and I hope you're having a good day or evening. This is your instructor encouraging you to run with these ideas.